On today's show, the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics are headed for a Game 7 back in Boston after the late-game heroics of one Derrick White with the tip-in game-winning shot in Game 6. How has Boston been able to claw their way back into the series after going down 0-3? A chance to make history and be the first team ever to come back from an 0-3 deficit in Game 7 being played on their home court. What needs to go right in Game 7 for Boston to make their return trip to the finals? It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's Eastern Conference Finals Game 7, and I think I'm taking Jason Tatum to score more than 26.5 points. Or what about Bam Adebayo to have more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Jimmy Butler to have less than 6.5 assists? Or what about Jaylen Brown to have fewer than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's not just the NBA. They've got you for NFL, MLB, NHL, everything. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. And right now, every day of the NBA playoffs and finals, one Prize Picks user will win a chance at becoming a millionaire. But you have to download the app to find out how. So download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Celtics, John Karalis. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Celtics. And John, despite all the odds stacked against them, the Celtics have managed to force a Game 7. They've brought things back to Boston, a chance to return to the NBA Finals on the line. And it all came down to a last-second tip-in by Derrick White. Walk us through that final play, how the players reacted to it, how you reacted to it, just the insanity of the ending of Game 6.
Okay, well, it's gonna take about half an hour. Now, so I'm at the Kaseya Center, but I'm high up, so I see the tip-in, but I can't tell what's happening. And the weird thing is there are a lot of Celtics fans there, so the Jumbotron shows the replay, and I hear initially a roar from the crowd that makes me think, it was late. But then a half second later, the Celtics are all jumping up and down. I was like, oh, damn, those were Celtics fans reacting, and the Celtics have won this game. Watching that play is just, it's kind of amazing in a part that no one's really discussing for good reason, because it didn't really matter at this point. But Jason Tatum was flying down the right side, and it felt like upon review, the Celtics were winning that game no matter what. Either Marcus Smart's shot was going to fall, or it was coming off one way. It came off Derrick White's way, and he got the putback. Jason Tatum was there at the front / right side of the rim for a putback. So it was just a matter of, could he have finished? After the game, everybody was just in shock. It was just a bunch of, I've never seen Jason Tatum as like raw and unfiltered. He's one of the most composed post-game players in the NBA. And he was just sitting there like, wow, did you guys see that? Like, it was just a kind of an amazing kind of attitude. The guys are obviously elated, but I think everybody understands exactly what happened there and exactly how fortunate they are to have a Game 7.
What has been kind of the major difference in your eyes between games 1 and 3 in this series, where the Celtics went down 0-3, and how they've been able to mount this comeback and force a Game 7, winning these last 3 in a row?
A lot of it's on the defensive end. Now, I could say in games 4 and 5 that they shot the ball really, really well. And in games 1 through 3, they didn't. But in Game 6, they shot it was their worst shooting performance of the entire season. And they still managed to win that game, which is, when you look at the statistics, everything was in Miami's favor except for Boston's points in the paint. And they just found a way to play just enough defense to give themselves a chance at the end. And I think when you look at games 4 and 5, especially, they forced a ton of turnovers. They turned those into points. And in this game 6, they really did a good job bothering Jimmy Butler. Now, he had a horrible game outside of the fourth quarter.
Well, it seems like everybody got a block on Jimmy Butler in this game at one point or another.
Yeah. And they've done a really good job. Like, Jimmy's probably gassed, but also give credit to the Celtics defense, and give credit to the Celtics defense on Bam Adebayo, because they figured out how to play those two guys and play them well. Now, if the Celtics can figure out how to do that and play Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent, then they can win game 7 by 40. But Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin seem to continue to carry Miami to keeping them close.
How much credit do you give to Joe Mazzulla for kind of figuring things out as this series went along, and kind of figuring out ways to continue to bother and make life really difficult for Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo?
Yeah, I think that he deserves plenty of credit. Like, he deserved some of the blame in games 1 through 3, but you can't sit there and be one of those guys that says, fire Mazzulla, and then when they pull off 3 in a row, say he had nothing to do with it. He had plenty to do with it. And I think, look, one of the things that in Boston in the middle of the season was, hey, why isn't Derrick White playing down the stretch in the fourth quarter? Now here he is playing the most crucial minutes of the season, making the biggest play of the season at the end of a game. So the lineup adjustment is big. The defensive adjustments, those are big. The just changing up the starting lineups and stuff like that, calling some really key timeouts, even, which is one of the things that he's just been criticized for.
Seeing the one timeout where he comes like flying down the baseline, like does like a karate jump midair to call the timeout.
Yeah. That's that was an emphatic one that counted for 2. So yeah, Joe Mazzulla has done a pretty good job. He's learning on the fly. He's figuring things out. And the Celtics, for all of their like experience in these situations, they're still 25 and 27 or 26. There's still some youth there to these guys. And there's, some level of, hey, we're kind of still figuring these things out going on. So Mazzulla definitely gets his fair share of the credit here, deservedly so.
What needs to happen here in game 7 for Boston to be able to repeat and have another trip to the finals?
Just going to come out strong. I don't think Miami has much left. They have, they might have a few good minutes left to start the game. They're going to come out strong. They're going to come out, even no matter how gassed you are, the first quarter is still that's when you have the most energy. If the Celtics can come out and play them tough and throw the first punch rather than take the first punch, go up by 10, 12, 15 early on in the game, I don't know that Miami's going to have it in them to come back. Just keep playing with a good pace, push the ball, trust that Joe Mazzulla can lean on some of the depth, and maybe Mazzulla leans into some of the other guys that haven't played much just for a couple of minutes, just to keep the pace going, and say the talent is not quite there. Maybe you don't want to go 9-10 deep at that point, but also when everybody's tired, use the fresh legs to keep pushing that pace and put the pressure on, and that can negate whatever talent issue there might be. So just play with that good pace, throw that first punch, and I don't know that Miami has anything left if Boston goes up by 20.
Boston has a chance to become the first team in history to come back from a 3-0 deficit. They're also the first team in history to have a chance to do it on their home court. Who has more pressure on them in this game 7, John? Is it Miami, who was up 3-0 and has now let 3 games slide and let it get to a game 7? Or is it Boston, who's had to fight and claw their way back to a game 7 on their own home court?
I mean, is it okay to say it's both teams? Because I think both teams have, like, Miami has a ton of pressure on them. You were up 3-0. You have 4 chances to win 1 game. you should do it. But Boston is at home in a game 7. Throw out the fact that you just had to win 3 games in a row. This is why you get home court. You're at home in a game 7 against the 8th seed. So you better win that game. So both teams have a fair amount of pressure on them and will be open to a good amount of criticism. I guess you can say maybe 51-49 Boston, because Boston shouldn't have even been in this position in the first place. And if they have done all of this only to go home and lose a game 7, that would be pretty bad. So as the more I talk, the more pressure I put on the Celtics. But there is a somewhat even distribution between both teams.
Will Boston be able to make history and win Game 7 and return to the NBA Finals? You're going to have us covered for all of that and more, the results of this game and further over at Locked On Celtics. John, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
You got it. Thanks, man.